Good morning, my little first grade soldiers. It is time for our next lesson in the American Revolution unit. I would like to remind you that we have been learning about our 13 colonies in what is now the United States. Remember that these first 13 colonies were originally settled mostly by people from Great Britain, but was the people living here, the ones ruling over them and deciding what laws they would have? No, it was people all the way over in Great Britain deciding what these people living here should do. Now, did they like that? Some of them didn't, right? The patriots didn't like that at all. The loyalists were like, I think it's okay. Let's just stay. We're still British. Let's just, not make any fuss about it. But the patriots, they were like, this isn't right. Do you remember what happened in the Boston Tea Party? That's right. That's when they're like, well, you are not going to tax our tea. You're going to dump it all over and get really upset. What is a tax anyway? The tax is that extra money you pay when you're buying stuff. And those taxes are used for things like roads and schools and all sorts of stuff that the government needs to provide us a pretty super awesome life here in the United States. They were being taxed and they didn't like it. Not because they didn't want to contribute money to those types of things, but because they didn't have any representation. So they didn't have anybody living in their colony that had any say over what they would be taxed for or what those taxes would go to. That's what they had a fuss about, is that they had no representation. Nobody to say, hey, I stand for these people and here's what I think would be best for my people. They didn't have that. So that's why it was a bit of a fuss. So we're going to continue today with a lesson called The Shot Heard Round the World. After the Boston Tea Party, King George sent thousands of British soldiers to Boston to make sure the colonists obeyed the king's orders. They swarmed the streets of the city in their fancy red uniforms with shiny buttons, earning themselves the names of Redcoats. They carried weapons with them everywhere they went. This made the people of Boston very angry. The city no longer felt like home to them. They did not know whom to trust. Spies spread all over the city. British soldiers disguised as colonists, and colonists disguised as British soldiers. There was lots of whispering in the streets as people kept secrets from one another. It was not very pleasant and even a little scary. Paul Revere was a silversmith living in Boston. This is Mr. Paul Revere. As a silversmith, he was kept quite busy making and repairing silver dinnerware, candlesticks, and jewelry. A sign with a silver pitcher hung outside his shop on the town square. One day, the door to his shop flew open, and a friend rushed over to Revere's side. The two men were both members of the Sons of Liberty. Remember, that's the group of patriots who had emptied tea into Boston's harbor. Ever since the Boston Tea Party, the colonists of Massachusetts had been hiding weapons, gunpowder, and cannonballs in neighboring towns. The British, afraid the colonists might be planning to attack them, captured the weapons whenever they learned where they were hidden. Now, as the two men huddled together in the back of Revere's shop, his friend whispered that the British were planning to raid the colonists' storehouse of weapons in the town of Concord. The British were to travel that night, he said, but nobody knew whether they would march there by land or choose the shorter route and sail on a boat by sea. The Patriots knew they must somehow warn the militia in Concord that the British were coming by sea. Revere spied on the British to discover the soldiers' plans. Then he arranged for a signal to be given, a secret code. His friend was to climb up the bell tower of the Old North Church, light one lantern and hang it in the belfry if the British are traveling on foot by land. Revere told his friend. But if they are traveling on a boat by sea, hang 2 lanterns. So 1 lantern if they're traveling by land, and 2 lanterns if they're traveling by sea. That night, after dark, Paul Revere left his family and crept down to the banks of the Charles River. He quietly crossed the river on a boat to a spot where fellow patriots waited with a horse, saddled and ready to go. Once across, Paul Revere mounted the horse, tipped his hat in thanks to the patriots, and sped away. As he galloped through towns along the way, Revere shouted to the colonists in their beds, "The redcoats are coming! The redcoats are coming!" All around him, shutters were thrown open as people began waking in the middle of the night. When Revere reached the town of Lexington with word of the approaching British troops, men hurried from their homes, joining one another with their muskets in the middle of the town. These men, known as Minutemen, because they were expected to be ready to fight at a minute's notice, slept with their muskets and gunpowder beside their beds. At dawn, the British reached Lexington. The Minutemen were farmers and shopkeepers, volunteers for their country, not trained soldiers. They looked ragged next to the well-dressed British soldiers, or redcoats. In the confusion of the early morning hours, a shot was fired. Others fired back, and fighting continued throughout the morning. Finally, Minutemen were able to force the British to return to Boston, firing at them from behind rocks, trees, and fences all along the way. To this day, no one knows who fired the first shot that day. Nerves had been on edge since the Boston Tea Party, so it was not surprising the guns went off. That first shot was the beginning of a long war between the British and their American colonies. It is known as the shot heard round the world because not only did it change life in the colonies, but it also changed things around the world in Great Britain, all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. That long war became known as the Revolutionary War. Could it be that the shot heard round the world rang out so loudly from Massachusetts colony that it actually reached King George's ears that April morning? What do you think? What do you think? Do you think the shot heard round the world was actually heard by King George all the way across the ocean from the United States of America, or the 13 colonies as it was then, all the way over in Great Britain? Tell me what you think. And tell me, more importantly, why you think that. Why do you think he did or did not hear it? Can you do that for me? Write it down. Hey, first graders, I am back to teach you a new proverb today. So remember that we have learned several proverbs, quite a few this year. And remember that a proverb is a saying that means a little bit more than what it actually says. So we talked about what being literal means. And to be literal means you mean exactly what you say. So for instance, when you say, "This is the worst day ever," are you being literal? Do you mean exactly what you say? It's probably not the worst day ever. Like for instance, April Fool's Day. Max said it was the worst day ever because people kept tricking him and he didn't like having all these April Fool's Day tricks on him. Was it really his worst day ever? Probably not. He's probably had a worse day than April Fool's Day because he was laughing quite a bit as well. So when you're literal, you mean exactly what you say. However, with our proverbs, they're not literal. There's a deeper meaning behind the words. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Here's some of the ones that we've already learned. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That was our golden rule. And we got to use golden glitter. Remember that? We have an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So that just means if you eat healthy, you're more likely to stay healthy. An apple a day doesn't literally keep the doctor away because you can still eat healthy and get sick. But the healthier you eat, the more likely you are to not get sick. So that's what an apple a day means. And remember that? We had the big teeth with the apple. That was a fun project that we did. What's next? A wolf in sheep's clothing. A wolf in sheep's clothing is somebody who is pretending to be nice, but they're actually kind of naughty, right? And we learned that when we read a story about a wolf who dressed up as a sheep, and then he ended up being sold at market, right? So it wasn't a good thing to do. Sour grapes. We learned that sour grapes from, what was that story? The Fox and the Grapes. We have the more the merrier. There's no place like home. And the Land of Nod was the most recent one, I think, that we did. Today I'm going to teach you a new one called Let the Cat Out of the Bag. Now, if you let the cat out of the bag, that means that you told a secret. So say you promise not to tell a secret, and somebody said, I want to tell you something, but you can't tell anybody. And then you tell somebody anyway. That's letting the cat out of the bag. You might have heard, don't let the cat out of the bag. Don't tell the secret. So if you do let the cat out of the bag, you tell a secret. So maybe the British soldiers weren't too happy with Paul Revere when he ran around saying, the British are coming, the British are coming, because he was letting the cat out of the bag. He was telling a secret, and they did not want the colonists to know, the British did not want the colonists to know that they were coming. Paul Revere let the cat out of the bag. Can you repeat after me? Let the cat out of the bag. Let's put some movements with it. Ready? Mirrors up. Let the cat meow out of the bag. Let the cat meow out of the bag. Good job. All right, while you're getting out your core folder, I want you to think of a time that you let the cat out of the bag or that somebody else let the cat out of the bag. For instance, my sister let the cat out of the bag when she told me that my mom ate my candy. Say a sentence like that. Go tell somebody a time that you or somebody that you know let the cat out of the bag. In the meantime, we're going to get our core folder out. If you open it up, you should see a paper bag, and you should see this cat, little guy. That's all you need. Let's close it up and put our core folder away. The very first thing we're going to do with our bag, it needs to be up, like we're going to open it. We are going to write, let the cat out of the bag on our bag, just like this. There you go, first graders. It should look like that. You can draw your cat or you can write it out. You'll notice that I made an oopsie. I was spelling bag BG instead of BAG. And that's okay. If you make a mistake and you don't have a pencil to erase it, it's okay. Just make it work. So go ahead and do that on your bag now while you pause. All right, the next thing we need to do is we need to get at our cat and we need to give him a face. So let's give him some eyes. And you can do your eyes however you'd like. I'm going to do mine like this. Let's give him a cute little nose. And we'll make him a smiley face. And it looks like he already has whiskers, right? But I'm going to give him some whiskers anyway, over here. I might just cut those ones out. Give him some little whiskers. Now we're going to color him. So get out your markers or your crayons, whatever you like to color him with, and color him. He should look something like this. Notice I didn't bother staying in the lines because I'm about to cut him out. So when you're done, go ahead and give him a cut like this. And now you are going to take your glue stick and you can glue your tail. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the end of my tail here and glue it behind my bag like that so it looks like his tail's poking out. And then I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom of his, like below his mouth, and I'm going to stick it inside the bag like he's stuck inside that bag. And I have my let the cat out of the bag little craft. Isn't that beautiful? I'll see you later, my little munchies. Take care.